All right, so I'm gonna keep going. So I think that our body, our this existence is highly what was crudely called electrical. Um, that it maybe a better maybe electricity is actually just a form of consciousness. It would be a better word. It's actually consciousness that you can see is what electricity might be. Um, because I think electricity makes it sound like a mechanical terms, or that also that it would correspond with metal necessarily, and consciousness does correspond with metal, but it's more profound, and it's not limited to metals. I don't think what is experienced and perceived as electricity, I think, is broader than that, such as when lightning interacts like with a tree, where you would appreciate that's not necessarily metal at that point, but it's still the effects and phenomena of what's being appreciated as electricity. Also, a lot of this existence can be appreciated in terms of boundaries, boundaries within boundaries within boundaries. All the boundaries within the human vehicle, the human body, the human yoga plant is appreciated of cells within cells within cells. A lot of the dynamics of living are about boundaries and cells, again, like a dwelling, a domicile, a vehicle, a place of labor, a place of work, and even where you in the out of doors, there's still boundaries about where it's appropriate to be at any given time in proximity to other people. And then if you were to appreciate things on the cellular, in terms of chemistry, even what's called organic and inorganic, where I think those might be arbitrary terms in the greatest sense, because there's not necessarily a difference between anything and anything. But and the only differences might be just grades and degrees, but in essence, in reality, in sum, in total, you have, I think you have exact you have perfect sameness and diversity at once. That is the dynamics that makes life viable. But running through that, things are always undefined yet unified somehow. And I think that what all these different cells amount to, the cells of our existence, and also our conduct and behavior, are different channels of conduit of charge for it amounts to diverse charges, and also different differentials that are the suitable grounds and means of expressing charge, polarity being necessary to convey charge. That is the dynamic experience of experiencing. Is from the expression of the presence of charging, and the conveying of potence along lines of charges. So in a certain sense, so like you have like all the cells, right? All the cells of the body, for an example, the cells are like perfectly bound and concealed and protected, yet they must be able to be traversed and passed, otherwise life wouldn't be viable. So you need to actually cross cell membranes, and then you have the different mechanics and the different functions within a cell, the different members of a cell. And then, but even those, they can be crossed, those thresholds can be crossed along certain lines, within certain degrees and contexts, they can be crossed. So then you have like dwellings or vehicles or places of employment or groups. uh, uh, all things in nature can really be crossed at a certain degree under certain parameters, and need to be crossed. Also, like you have the cell of a domicile or a dwelling, but it can be crossed by a radio transmission in the form of like a text message. And that'd be necessary. A lot of our life simply wouldn't be viable without radio means, and these radio frequencies are yet crossing thresholds that need to be preserved. You still need the threshold, but it also needs to be crossed. So you could say that, and that's true down to the atomic level. I think there's actually boundaries and protections, even in the form of attraction and repulsion, just as a field, as an electric magnetic field. There are boundaries of fields within where we appreciate as electric phenomena or chemical phenomena, um, like quantum phenomena, and so forth. I can't enunciate all that, but I do appreciate at least that there are certain degrees of boundaries, and you have like a scope of movement of what something can and can't do. And a lot of what something can and can't do, whether that be a being or even like down to the atomic level, is part of the fact that all things are interdependent. So your actual scope of agency and license to move and maneuver is a function of the interdependent value that you serve within an interdependent system, and maybe the more value and congruence within your motion, the more range of motion and also potency you would have. That's more so in spiritual and moral terms, because Arthur Avalon has said that no 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 being within nature, which all being is relative, is limited, but it is relative within being limited because it's actually unlimited all the while. But it's necessary for a degree of limit and relativity to serve the broader function of a total, which that aggregate composite total is profound and living and vital and dynamic. But you actually need some diversity and a limited scope of agency within that to make the broader whole possible. And that's a lot of what we are. But according to Arthur Avalon, the more so congruent and forthright and equitable of decisions that you think, do, and say, the greater scope of freedom and agency you have, while still being bound and deriving support from the fact that you're an interdependent unit of a interdependent composite. And then so doing so, you experience more of joy and therefore health and vitality and the further capacity to express agency as a function of your propriety and being equitable. And then so as you deviate from that and say you were to be dishonest, you may think that you get away with different things, but just the fact that you're moving now, because you can't really do something without moving a particular way, and were you to move a particular way, you lose some of your stature and stance and bearing and potential to withstand and withhold the different duties and rigors that are put upon you, as are put upon all of existence from your respective function. And then you further lose range of mobility, and then but you still have the same rigors and tasks, and it's more difficult to sustain them to the point that you get taken down like that, and maybe even obliterated and discarded at a certain point as a person, but also as a member of nature. Is that same dynamic. But things still do have a degree of boundary, constantly proliferates what we experience, from the broadest sense, grossest sense, down to the subtlest causal sense in the terms of like quantum phenomena. But that things can be traversed like that, crossed like that, makes me think that more of what we appreciate as a structure of any kind, whether that be a human being, an animal, plant, even a inorganic structure, or so a specimen like a say a rock, or like maybe like water, air, whatnot. There's different boundaries within that. But the fact that they can be crossed makes me think that these are more so just structures of conduit structures that allow appropriate charges to pass. So in a certain sense, even though the human body is completely contained, like you imagine if you were to have like I don't mean to be cruel, but you have some feces that are out in the open, that smell will be overpowering, overbearing, and cannot be avoided or ignored if feces are in the open. Yet in an ordinary day, it's appreciated in some of these gross commercials that come on our screen that we have up to at least like sometimes 10 pounds of feces within the human body at any given point during the day. And the fact that you cannot perceive any of that while it's within the digestive tract or in a human being just shows that the human body is very contained and concealed, and a lot of what goes on is perfectly contained, almost beyond what you'd say airtight. But it can still be crossed. And so from that standpoint, I think that even the human body is more so of a conduit in a complex structure as a conduit for charges and electricity, roughly, for lack of a better word, that make life viable, but it's completely wide open in a certain sense. Because just like a radio message can go straight through a person, a lot of things can come out of us and go through us seamlessly if the charge is right. So like you meet someone, you say the wrong thing, you get slapped in the face. You can seamlessly enter a person's life and world on any level if the charge is right, and therefore it's viable. So maybe the boundary, whether it's an intellectual boundary, a mental boundary, the boundary of our person, our being, or the boundaries of a physical object, it's more so of both a protection but also an invitation to the right suitable charge to cross. But from that sense, we're almost actually wide open all the time, as nothing but freedom at essence. However, housed and protected and contained so that the right charges, the right exchanges can be. Some people would say that some relationships are transactional or some are not. I would almost say all existence, all of life is transactional in the first place, whether money is involved or not. But that's actually the charge is transactional at all times.